All right, welcome to the Metal Bastards Hangout YouTube podcast, YouTube channel. We are the Metal Bastards, and we are bringing you the long-awaited Uriah Heep deep dive, part 1 of 3 parts of this deep dive right now. And today we're going to be doing the first 9 albums from 1970 all the way to 76, the David Bryon era. So yeah.
So if you guys are ready for a good time, get your pockets full of Heep, get ready to go.
That's right. Your pockets better be full of Heep because we don't want to hear you weep.
Exactly.
All right. Look at the chat real quick. All right, we got Brian McFadden in the chat room. It looks like we had Ryan Arnold. Oh, Ryan's here right now. Cool. Welcome to the Uriah Heep deep dive. We're going to get started right now, actually.
No,
I'm not going to be looking at the comment section too much. So we're going to get right into this. So Uriah Heep obviously has a beginning like every other band has a beginning. And it predates all the way back to 1967. The band's origins go back to 1967 when 19-year-old guitarist Mick Box formed a band in Brentwood called Hogwash, which began playing in local clubs and pubs. When the band's singer left, drummer Roger Penlington suggested his cousin David Garrick,
yeah,
who knew the band as a replacement. Box and Garrick formed a songwriting partnership. Then their colleagues decided to give up their day jobs and go professional.
Which the band would have been called Spice, if I'm correct, right, Ben?
Actually, you're exactly right on that. So yes, from there, they changed their name to Spice. David Garrick changed his name to David Bryon.
And then we had a drummer by the name of Alex Napier.
Yep.
And then a bassist, Paul Newton, supposedly of the God.
Yep. Bassist Paul Newton of the Gods completed the lineup. Spice avoided playing covers and, according to Box, always strove to do something original. Managed initially by Newton's father, the band climbed their way up to the marquee levels, then got signed by Jerry Braun's Bronze Music.
Mm-hmm.
The Hit Productions, at the time it was called, who saw the band at the Blues Loft Club in
High Wycombe,
yes. I thought they were a band I could develop, and I took them on that basis. Remembered Braun. Later, he became the band's manager and signed them to Vertigo Records, which is a label based in the UK at the time.
Which they formed Phillips Records.
Yes. Yep. You're exactly right about that.
And
4 people found themselves booked into the Lansdowne recording studio in London, still under the names of Spice. Then the name was changed to that of the well-known character from David Copperfield's Uriah Heep. For according to biographer Kirk Blows, Dickens' name being everywhere around the Christmas of 1969 due to it being the 100th anniversary of his death, according to Dave Link's 2001 autobiography of the band Wizards and Demons. Ironic, because there would be an album called Demons and Wizards later on down the road, or just a few years down the road.
I'll talk about the debut album, Ben, once you finish up this.
All right. So Wizards and Demons. Oh, okay. So this is about the Uriah Heep story. Okay, the Uriah Heep story through the Uriah Heep moniker was chosen in December of 1969. The band continued to play gigs at Spice until Ken Hensley joined. Ken Hensley joined in February of 1970. Uriah Heep then decided to with the sound. We'd actually recorded half the first album when we decided the keyboards would be good for our sound. They were big. They were hugely influenced by Vanilla Fudge, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously
one of the first, one of the early pioneers, along with Heap, to do that organ sound.
Right. Yeah, because Vanilla Fudge was one of the first to do the electric Hammond organ sound, which became very popular throughout the 70s.
Which is kind of weird, Ben, because you look at Vanilla Fudge. They're the first one to do it. I think Uriah Heep was the one to perfect it.
Yeah, I mean, it's debatable. It could be Uriah Heep or it could be Deep Purple. It's one of them two bands.
One of the three. I'd say those are the three bands early on that really pushed that organ sound in rock. You know what I mean?
Oh, I agree. I totally agree.
Yeah.
So
we go right into 1970, their debut album, basically, which I'll gladly discuss.
So Jerry Braun brought in session player Colin Wood, followed by Hensley, a former colleague of Newton's in the Gods, who was then playing guitar in Tofat. Yes. A lot of connections here to early Uriah Heep, obviously. I saw a lot of potential in the group to do something very different, remembers Hensley. All right, so then we get to the debut album, Very Heavy, Very Humble, released in 1970. And
I'll gladly take over for the debut album, man.
Yep, go ahead.
So their 1970 debut album, Very Heavy, Very Humble, released as Uriah Heep in the United States, introduced Hensley, heavy organ and bass guitar driving sound with David Byron's theatrical, scroll down, theatrical dynamic vocals soaring above thunderous sonic backgrounds, although acoustic and jazz elements also featured in the mix. The album's title references the signature phrases of the Dickens character, Very Humble. Hensley had a little to contribute to the debut. Box and Byron wrote most of the material, including Gypsy, in many ways according to Blow's A Marriage of Contrast, and that in time became They're the Room Next Door to Us. You can imagine the kind of racket we were both making between us. During the winter of 1970, 3/4 into the recording of the album, drummer Alex Napier was replaced by the next drummer, Nigel Olsson, recommended by Byron by Elton John. Interesting. Very interesting. The debut was not popular with rock critics, especially in the U.S., where Rolling Stones reviewer Melissa Mills infamously promised to commit suicide if this band makes it. Ouch. In the course of this album's making, the writing relationship between Box, Byron, and Hensley was beginning to develop. It was very quick because we were all into the same things. It was like it was meant to be. There was that kind of chemistry. Yeah. And when Nigel returned to Elton John's group in spring of 1970, Keith Baker took his place in the band. The band's, and then you get into the second album right there, Yeah.
All right, so the first album. I'm going to pull up the album cover real quick because there's actually two different album covers.
Yeah.
So you got the original UK album cover right there, which has a different track listing, which we're going to talk about the track listing for the UK version here. Okay, so the track listing was Gypsy, Walking in Your Shadows, Come Away Melinda, Lucy Blues, which did not appear on the American version. Bird of Prey appeared on the American version in the place of Lucy Blues.
Yeah.
And I believe that's the only difference, actually.
Yeah, because side 2 you have Dream Mare, Real Turned On, I'll Keep on Trying, and Wake Up, Set Your Sights.
Yep, you're right about that.
And then
And
you had a remaster in 1996. Then you had the expanded deluxe in 2003, and then 2016 you had an expanded deluxe.
yes, exactly. So right there's the American version of actually it's just called Uriah Heep here in America, which is quite different in its own right. All right, so I guess we'll go through this album real quick. All right, so obviously it opens up with Gypsy, and what a killer way to begin this debut album. Heavy, doomy, very Sabbath-like on this track, mixed with these freaking amazing Hammond organ playing.
Oh, yeah.
To me, it's an awesome track. I think it's an excellent opener to the album. It's one of the heavier tracks on the album.
I think it kicks ass.
I would agree. It absolutely kicks ass. Yeah, I love the rip. It's real simple, but it's real catchy,
Yeah, and you go into the second track, which is Walking in Your Shadow. Catchy. It's a little bit of a catchy song.
Yeah. It's a pretty decent track. I mean, I think it's a good follow-up to the opening track, Don't got like a whole lot to say about it, but yeah, it's a pretty good Heep song.
Yeah.
And so that track, so then we get a cover track, an old folk cover called Come Away Melinda. So yeah, this one is very melodic and shows a different side to David Byron's vocals. He kind of has a deeper tone to his voice on this track, which it's really unique how they did the production back then, because back then, they used production-wise, like you could hear one side of an instrument on one side of the speaker, and it would go back and forth sound-wise.
Yeah.
It's weird how it's produced though, because like the parts to vocals will be on one side of the speaker and then on the other side of the speaker. It's really weird, and a lot of albums were produced that way back then.
And you go into the fourth track, which I prefer. I think Lucy Blues is an alright track. I prefer the other track, which is Bird of Prey.
Bird of Prey, yes. I would agree, because Lucy Blues to me is, I would say it's pretty much a filler track.
Bird of Prey doesn't feel filler at all. No.
Oh, hell no. It's a heavy track. Definitely an early proto-metal track indeed. And this version of Bird of Prey is different from the Salisbury version, which we'll definitely talk about.
Yeah.
Like, to me, David Byron's vocal approach on this track is definitely different,
Yeah.
Bird of Prey, though, one of the catchiest guitar riffs on the album,
Yep.
Good stuff.
Oh, man. Especially the vocals on that song.
Right, so then we go to the second half of the album, Dream Mare, which I think Dream Mare is a pretty damn good track, too. Another pretty heavy track on the album. Real turned on. Not a bad track. It's all right.
It's okay. I like it. It's okay.
I really like this track. This track's really good. You can definitely hear kind of a Deep Purple vibe on this track in the beginning of the track. And you definitely get the showcase of David Byron's operatic vocals, which would influence Freddie Mercury down the road. So you definitely get that on this track. I should have mentioned too, you get that in Gypsy also, his operatic vocal style, and on Bird of Prey, you get some of those operatic vocals and the layered vocals that Queen would become famous for. Freddie Mercury pertainly, yes. So then we got Wake Up, Set Your Sights to close off the album. Very fusion sounding. This one definitely has a huge jazz influence on it, in my opinion.
Well, we gotta think of the time. Some of the bands at that time, like Sabbath, Heep, Zeppelin, were all influenced by jazz.
Right. And again, this is another track too that showcases the lower vocal register of David Bryon, which you didn't really hear a lot after this album.
No.
And another thing I'm going to mention too, this is the only album that Ken Hensley did not write on. Mm-hmm. Well, besides Bird of Prey on the US version, which was recorded for Salisbury. He had writing credits on that, but the rest of this album, or the UK version, I'm going to say he had no writing credits on it, and it's the only Uriah Heep album where he had no writing credits, there.
Yeah.
So, yeah. It's a little confusing because they did have two different drummers on this album. So the lineup is David Bryon, obviously David Bryon, lead vocals, Mick Box, lead guitars, acoustic guitars, and vocals. Paul Newman, bass guitar and vocals. Ken Hensley, organ, slide guitar, mellotron, piano, vocals, and Nigel Olsson, drums, percussion. And they also had Alex Napier on drums also, except for on Lucy Blue, Dreamer, and Bird of Prey, he did not play on.
Mm-hmm.
And they had Colin Wood do the keyboards on Come Away Melinda and Wake Up, Set Your Sight. Mm-hmm. And they had Keith Baker play drums on Bird of Prey, so it is a little confusing, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Produced by Jerry Braun. So what score would I give the debut album? It's a good debut.
It was 6.5.
So you're giving it a 6.5?
Mm-hmm. It's a good debut, but it's not a strong debut.
Yeah, mine's definitely a little higher.
Yeah.
I agree. It's a good debut. It's a good way to start. It's definitely not their best album by no means. I would give it an 8. To me, it's an 8.
Reason why I give it a 6.5. The first 9 albums. This album will be lower, just for me, out of the first 9 albums.
Right.
But I still like it.
So yeah.
Let me go on to Salisbury next.
All right. So Salisbury. Okay, I forgot to mention the release date for Very Heavy, Very Humble. Mm-hmm. In the UK, it came out on June 13th, 1970. In the US, it came out in August of 1970. No date. It was recorded from July of 69 to April of 1970 at Lansdowne Studios in London. Forgot to mention that. And, okay, now we'll move on to the next album.
Yeah.
Which is 1971 Salisbury. Again, 2 different album covers and a different track listing. So you got the UK version, which I like this cover better.
I do.
And you got the US version,
which isn't a bad cover, but the UK version coverage looks better.
Oh yeah, definitely. I actually have both versions of this, so I didn't break out my vinyls.
Should have just brought the box set.
Well, yeah, I got it in the box set too. So,
yeah.
Anyway, so let's look at the difference in track listings here. And I believe this is the last of the album.
Sorry, Ben. I was just gonna read the recap on Salisbury.
Oh, go ahead.
Salisbury is the second album released by Uriah Heep in 1971 by Vertigo Records. It was produced by Gary Braun. Unlike the first album, songwriting credits for fully half of the record were attributed to Ken Hensley alone, as opposed to the debut. David Byron Mixbox, soon after the release of the drummer of Keith Baker left the band. The next drummer to join on this album was by a drummer by the name of Ian Clark, from another Vertigo band called Cressida, something like that. That's what it says. With Clark, the band embarked on their very first U.S. tour, supporting Three Dog Night and Steppenwolf. So that's what the backstory is for Salisbury.
Right. All right. So yeah. All right. So yeah, this album came out in
71.
Does not have a date, but it came out in January of 1971, only about 6 months after the debut came out. Recorded in October and November of 1970 at the same studio. So yeah, we'll get into the track listings and we'll tell you the difference between this release and the UK release. And this would be the last album that had a different track listing.
You get the much better version of Bird of Prey to kick it off, I think.
Yeah.
A heavier version.
Right, definitely. So you got Bird of Prey, The Park, Time to Live, Lady in Black, High Priestess, and Salisbury on the UK version. And on the American version, you don't get Bird of Prey on the American version, which is weird. You get High Priestess to begin it, The Park, Time to Live, Lady in Black, Simon the Bullet Freak, and Salisbury.
Salisbury, yeah.
So that's your U.S. track listing. Okay. All right, so I guess we'll run down the UK version. Again, Simon the Bullet Freak's a good song.
Yeah. As a song.
Yeah.
I'd say it's the first filler song.
Yeah. So for me, I definitely prefer the UK version over the US version. Just Bird of Prey's definitely a better opener, obviously. All right, so we'll just read off the track listing for the UK version. And we begin with the Salisbury version of Bird of Prey.
Bird of Prey. Heavier. Definitely heavier. Definitely more guitar driven than the other version of Bird of Prey.
Yeah, that's what I think too. It seems like to me Mick Box is adding more when it comes to guitars on this version, you know. I really like it. It definitely sounds heavier.
You know what I hear on this version of Bird of Prey? You remember the track Over the Mountain, where Randy Rhoads is doing that little kind of chuggy little like riff that's sliding down a slope. That's what I hear on from Mick Box on this track, this version of Bird of Prey. Like a real early version of that, you know.
That's actually a really good point. You know what? Yeah, you kind of do hear that. It's like a predecessor of what you would hear on Over the Mountain.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That makes sense. It does kind of have that feel to it on what you would hear down the road on Over the Mountain a little bit. With the I mean, it's played a little differently, obviously. But
well, this is how I hear it. Boom, 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 boom. But it's like real short notes. You know what I mean?
Right. And so yeah, definitely a killer opener. Again, basically you get those Mick Box operatic high vocals, really good stuff.
David Byron on it. David Byron.
Yes. All right, so then we get into the next track.
The Park.
Solely written by Ken Hensley, The Park. Interesting track this is. Again, this has more of that jazz fusion sound, It's very jazzy. This track's definitely very jazzy, but I like it. I like it a lot. I think it's a really good track. It's got a very dark vibe to it too, which I like. Time to Live, one of the heavier tracks on the album. Good track. I like it a lot. I think it's a good, solid track. It's got a pretty cool riff in it. a good Mick Box riff in there. So that one was written by Box, Byron, and Hensley.
Mm.
Oh, man, and then we get the classic Lady in Black.
Lady
What a
in Black.
freaking awesome song.
I think this is the song where we really get that first taste of what the next Heap albums are going to sound like. Just from a song structure-wise on Lady in Black.
And I don't know what's going on, but you keep breaking up, Mike.
Oh, I hear you. Fine. I don't notice it on my end.
Yeah, I can hear it on here. I don't. It sounds like the internet keeps like wanting to cut out.
Oh yeah.
I think you're all right now, though.
Yeah. At least there's no echo.
Technical difficulties, people. That's just what comes with doing StreamYard.
Gremlins.
Oh, anyway, so we're talking about Lady in Black. To me, this is definitely a track, the beginning of that Uriah Heep sound that you would hear on like albums like Demons and Wizards.
Mm.
It's a gorgeous track written by Ken Hensley, and Ken Hensley does the vocals. Which for the longest time, until I found out, obviously, quite a few years ago, I actually thought it was David Bryon doing the vocals, because Ken Hensley and David Bryon sound very similar when they sing. And I always thought it was Byron until, I looked it up on YouTube like 10 years ago and saw it was Ken Hensley doing the vocals.
Yeah.
So yeah, really gorgeous song. Now here's an interesting track. I really like this track.
High Priestess.
High Priestess. In this track right here, you can really tell where Queen got their influence from when you listen to it. You can hear Queen all over this. Well, what would become Queen all over this track.
Mm-hmm.
And Freddie Mercury was really influenced by David Bryon. Well, on this track, you can definitely tell it's got all the operanics. It's a faster track too. It's almost speed metal like, or proto speed metal like. It's a damn good song.
It is a damn good song.
Yep. Then we get the epic closer, Salisbury.
Great closer.
Excellent closer, yes. And the longest Uriah Heep track, it's 16 minutes and 20 seconds. Done with a full orchestra. Written by Box, Bryon, and Hensley.
Yeah. Ben, speaking of Salisbury, I am looking at the US release, and if you look at the length of songs in the UK release, it is really cut short on the US release. They really trimmed the songs on the US release.
Whoa. You know what? You're right about that. It's like trimmed. Yeah, they cut like 8. Yeah, they cut like 8 seconds of Salisbury off on the US release. I never actually really noticed that before.
Yeah, they cut off High Priestess by a couple minutes. The Park is 5 minutes and 41 on the UK, and it's only 5 minutes and 30 or so on the US. Time to Leave is a second longer, and then Lady in Black is a second behind the US release, which is kind of interesting.
I never actually noticed that. That's kind of interesting, actually. And I normally don't even listen to the US release just because I like the UK release better, But I never actually really noticed that. That is pretty interesting. Wow. So yeah, Salisbury, what a freaking epic track. Great way to end the album. Get some great Mick Box guitar solos on this track with that wah-wah pedal.
Okay, so I'm reading into why the US release, they cut it in half. Because of the orchestra.
Okay. That's kind of weird.
Yeah. Some of the orchestral parts in it. Which I can understand.
I don't know. I never actually ever really noticed, to be honest. I'd have to play them back to back one time to see if I can pick out what was cut out. But
we go into
track.
Track.
So that's Salisbury. Then, not too long after that, we go into the third studio album.
You forget about the rating.
Oh yeah, Salisbury. I'd
7
say
7 out of 10.
To me, I give this album a 9 out of 10. If we're talking about the UK version, definitely a 9 out of 10.
UK version gets a 9 out of 10 for me.
Now, the US version, I'd give maybe a 7 out of 10 just because I think it was poorly done. But
then we're getting now we're getting into the beginnings of the classic. Yeah.
Still there, Mike?
I'm still here.
All right.
Yeah. Oh,
okay, so then we go into the third studio album, Look at Yourself.
Oh my God!
Which came out the same year, 1971. It came out in September of 1971. Recorded in July of '71.
Yeah.
And to me, this album's a masterpiece.
And I'll read what the transcript says. Look at Yourself as the third studio album. I'm sorry, Ben.
No, go ahead.
You Look at Yourself as the third studio album by English rock band Uriah Heep. Released in September 1971 by Bronze Records. It's a new record label for them here in the UK, and Mercury Records in the United States. It was the last Uriah Heep album to feature founding member and bassist Paul Newton. Characterized as a heavy metal and progressive rock album that came to be viewed as a high point in the band's career and is regarded by many fans and critics as one of Uriah Heep's finest albums. Along with Demons and Wizards, released the following year, the title track In July Morning released as singles in the UK and North America in 1971 and 1973 respectively. The song July, I'm just reading what it says. The song July Morning was the inspiration for a Bulgarian tradition known as some eponymiously, I can't pronounce that, so as July Morning or Jule. That's what it says on there. Of a gathering on the beach on the Black Sea coast on the morning of July 1st. Watch the sunrise. The album was mentioned in the David Sedaris book, Barrel Fever and Dawn Story. Look at Yourself was remastered and reissued by Castle Community. That don't matter. But yeah, overall, yeah. Wow. That's what it says. Yeah.
All right, so I'll pull up the album covers real quick because oh man, fucking throat's dry. Because again, we have two different album covers.
Yeah.
We got this version, which I actually own. It actually has like a what is it? You can actually look through the mirror on the album. It's got like a reflection on it.
Mm-hmm.
So then you got this version, which don't have that on it,
Nope.
which I definitely prefer the other version better.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to figure out. Okay, so this is. All right, so this would be the first album that was just strictly released around the world.
Yes.
With no
so
different
this would be
tracks.
the first international album around the world, basically. Yeah.
Right. So, lineup-wise, we do have a little bit of a lineup change here. Obviously, we got David Byron on vocals, Mick Box on guitars, Paul Newton on bass, Ken Hensley on organ, piano, slide guitar, And we get a new drummer. Yep, we get Ian Clark on drums, which would be the only album he would play drums on.
Mm-hmm.
So that's your personnel on this album. So you get 7 tracks, and we're going to get right into it. The opening track.
Oh, my
man.
Fucking bomber of an opener.
Yes, it is. Oh, my God, what a killer opener this is. Fast-paced. fast-paced, very upbeat.
Sound.
Yes. And this right here would be this track right here would be basically what you would hear going into the future when it comes to the faster Uriah Heep tracks with that shuffle like drum beat, that they would become famous for. Mm-hmm. So it started on this album. What a freaking explosive track this is. Mm-hmm. Such an awesome track, man.
Especially David Byron's vocals are just fantastic on the song, too.
I agree. His vocal performance on this track is excellent.
You know what also catches me with Look at Yourself? It almost has a deep purple kind of swingy vibe to it with Byron's vocals on it. Yeah.
Actually, very good point.
Sounds like he's trying to one-up Ian Gillan almost. Sounds like he's trying to one-up
a little bit. Of course, back then, Rolling Stones panned Uriah Heep for being a cheap version of Deep Purple, which I disagree with. More like Rolling Stones magazine absolutely sucks. It should never have existed to begin with. Same magazine to bash Black Sabbath, too, so go figure.
Well, they have poor taste,
Exactly, yes, exactly. So then we move on to I Want to Be Free, another freaking excellent track on here. Really enjoy this track. It's got a good atmosphere to it, very progressive sounding, just good stuff,
And we get an epic.
Then we get an epic.
July
Morning.
Beautiful song.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely awesome song. What more could be said?
And this is another song. This is another song where you'll hear that little bit of slower tempo, kind of humming vocals from Hensley and Byron on some other albums too.
Exactly. Yep. But man, this track, it's just awesome, man. Mm-hmm. It's got a great build-up. I love the jam session near the end. You even get a little bit of double bass near the end of the track, too. Mm-hmm. Just a killer track. Moving on, we got more greatness. Tears in My Eye, another strong track on this album. Yeah. Just good stuff, man. I love this track, man. I love the chorus in this track. Mm-hmm. There's a tear in my eye. It's just good stuff.
Good stuff.
You get that slide guitar work in there by Mick Box. Yeah, man.
Good
Shadow of Grief, another long track on here. This one's definitely really progressive sounding. I enjoy this track too. I think it's another solid track.
That's a good one. It's a good one.
Oh my God, this is another one too that has very good vocals by David Bryon on it when it comes to that operatic stuff. Really good stuff. What Should Be Done is probably the mellowest track on the album.
Oh, but it's still good.
Really good.
And he ended out with another good track, Love Machine.
Oh, yes. Excellent track. Great way to end this album. Probably the heaviest Heep album of the 70s, easily.
And and when you can guess what the two singles are, obviously, it's no brainer.
Yeah. Look at Yourself in July Morning, man. Come on. And rightfully so, because they're killer tracks.
And guess what? It says the single. I'm reading what it says on Wikipedia. The singles from Look at Yourself. Look at Yourself, released September 1971 in the UK. July Morning, released June 1972, Japan.
Right on. Yeah. My score on this album, 10 out of 10.
Oh, it's a fucking perfect album.
Yes.
It's a perfect album.
Yep. 10 out of 10 indeed.
Oh, it gets even better. It's even heavier.
Yeah. It gets really good because now we're getting into the classic Uriah Heep lineup, that is.
Lineup. Which would be the classic lineup.
All right, so not too long after Look at Yourself came out, Demons and Wizards came out on May 19th, 1972 on Vertigo.
Oh,
Again, recorded at Lansdowne Studios in London. You know, oh man, this freaking album, this is going to be a fun one to talk about.
especially the debut of Lee Kerslake on drums.
Oh, yes. All right, so if you want to tell a little story going into this album.
Yeah. It's brief, but it shows it here. Composition and recording. You know, it came out 19th of May, 1970. Sorry, I'm getting a little nervous reading, Ben. I'm sorry. Yeah.
That's
You want
fine.
to read it, brother? Yeah.
All right, so we'll just get right into the album. Okay. Lineup-wise, this is the classic lineup, obviously, and what an improvement. You can tell the improvement, too, with this lineup.
Mm-hmm.
Not that the members before this, like, you know, the bass player, the drummer before this were bad, because they definitely weren't.
But this was the iconic sound for the band.
Yeah, and it's a shame this lineup. Yeah, and it's a shame this lineup did not stick throughout the 70s.
No.
David Bryon on vocals, obviously. Mick Box on guitars. Ken Hensley, keyboards, guitars, you know, percussion, all that stuff. Lee Kerslake from Tothat on drums.
Drums, yeah.
And we get Gary Thane on bass. To me, Uriah Heep's best bass player.
Mm-hmm. Oh, no doubt. Oh, no doubt.
The bass lines this guy lays down are absolutely incredible.
Wait,
I mean,
there's an additional musician that says here, Mark Clark, bass guitar on the Wizard and why?
actually, yes, that should actually be mentioned because Mark Clark was only in the band for a very short period of time, and he did play bass on the Wizard. So yeah, that's not Gary Thane on that track. But then he left during the recording sessions, and that's when Gary Thane came in.
And the rest is history.
Right. So Gary Thane. Okay, Gary Thane came from the Keith Harley band originally before joining Uriah.
Interesting.
Okay. All right, so we're going to talk about the tracks on this record because this is definitely a classic. A lot of people would say this is the best Uriah Heep album, rightfully so, because it's a really good album.
Well, you kick it off with
The Wizard.
Legendary epic, I'd say. Their first legendary epic. Even more epic than Look at Yourself. This is a step up. You know.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting because the album begins with a mellow track as opposed to the first three beginning with heavier tracks. So that's a little different. But man, this track is incredible. Again, this one has Ken Hensley on lead vocals. So yeah, really, really good track. And it would become
that classic Heep. You get that first classic acoustic guitar and I'll Heep sound on it too, you know.
Oh, yeah. All right, so moving on, we go to Traveler in Time.
Oh, it's a barn burner of a song.
That's a really good track. It's some really good... You get some drumming by Lee Kerslake in this track. Excellent bass playing by Gary Thane. Excellent vocals by David Bryon. However, I think David Byron's vocals sound a bit different on this album. I guess they seem less operatic in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong, the operatics are still there, but it seems like on this album he's doing a little bit more singing.
Singing, he's really trying to... He's also, I noticed on this too, from what I'm hearing so far, he's also really trying to solidify, kind of stabilize and solidify his sound vocals more on this album. I see a huge improvement. You know what I mean?
Right.
Oh, then
Absolutely.
the next track. Oh my fuck! This next track. Holy shit!
Easy Living. What a barn burner of a track.
Especially the bass line that Gary Thane's doing on that you hear in the background.
Yeah, just the stuff he's doing on the bass is incredible. Yeah, he's doing these bass rides like in the background.
And
it's
then
really
fucking
amazing.
He cursed like an animal with those shuffles in that song.
I mean, the shuffles began on Look at Yourself, but it's like Lee Kerslake came in the band and made those shuffles even better, you know, by adding fills, adding a bunch of unique stuff behind them. Like, nobody could shuffle like Lee Kerslake could. I mean, nobody.
And this is the song you really start to hear David Bryon starting to shine. Starting to. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Really good vocal performance, obviously. Very short track, too. And it's just short and energetic and fast, you know. Really good stuff. Then we get Poet's Justice.
Good track.
Really good track indeed, yes. Absolutely enjoy it. You know.
Circle of Hands.
Another epic track on the album.
And then probably my favorite track off of side 2 is coming up next. Rainbow Demon.
Ooh, Rainbow Demon, yes. The doomiest track on the album. Yeah, this is pretty much a proto-doom metal track.
Yeah.
I just love it. The way it begins, it's very dark. Byron comes in doing like a very dark vocal style. Just great stuff.
Yeah.
Great Hammond organ work by Ken Hensley on that track.
Mm-hmm.
All My Life's another rocker. I'd probably say this one's probably the weakest track on the album. It's good, but it's one I don't really go back to.
No, not really. So then you got Paradise.
Ooh, yes, another epic track. Paradise, The Spell.
Spell.
Like, to me, just an epic way to end this freaking album.
Now, it says here The Spell, on some CD editions, they combine them as just one whole song.
They do, yes. Yep. Yeah, actually, they do combine them together in some versions, but man, this track is absolutely incredible. Just very epic, very progressive. Yeah, you can definitely hear a lot of progression in this track. Really good piano work by Ken Hensley on this track, too. Excellent vocals by Byron on here. You get those slide McBox guitar solos. Just great, great stuff. I can see why people would put this album at number 1. But to me, I'd say it's probably number 2. I'm still giving this album like a 9.5 out of 10.
For me, it's number 3, but it can jump to either of the top 3 for me. This album's a 10. This album's a 9 out of 10.
There you go.
But it can also be a 10 out of 10. It varies on how I feel about the album. So certain days, it's a 10 out of 10. Most of the time, it's a 9 out of 10 for me.
Right. Oh, yeah. Did I show the album covers for Demons and Wizards? No, I didn't.
No, you did not.
See, we're already making a bunch of mistakes. But that's what happens. Oh, yeah,
that happens when you have fun.
But that's what happens when you do these live, you know, and don't pre-record them.
No.
So anyways, here's the album covers. There's actually 2 different covers. So this one right here is the known cover that everybody knows. But this one right here, I like this cover better. This is actually the original cover.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it just pops out better. It just pops.
Right. I don't know why they didn't just stick with this cover. I think it's way better than, you know, the cover that we all know.
Yeah.
It's really cool, though. Roger Dean, man, what a great artist. And I forgot to mention, so this would be the first one they did with Roger Dean's artwork, which Roger Dean did artwork for Yes, you know, and a bunch of other prog bands back in the 70s, you know.
Yeah.
I believe he did some artwork for Camel, just a bunch of different prog bands from back then.
Yep.
All right, so then we go to, again in 1972, to me, Demons and Wizards' little brother.
Yeah, The Magician's Birthday.
Birthday. With this album, to me, it's a good album. Let me pull up the track listing here. See, yeah, Magician's Birthday would be the fifth studio album.
Yeah. Fifth album. Came out in 72. Came out in 72.
Right. So yeah, this is pretty cool. The concept was based loosely on a short story written by keyboardist Ken Hensley in June and July of 1972. Released in November of 72, recorded in September and October of 72. Let me get that off of there.
And a little side note, Ben, in the reception here is a quote from Mr. Martin Popoff, which I will read. Canadian journalist Martin Popoff called The Magician's Birthday another colorful, mystical journey, although somewhat disjointed, less accessible, and in total much less metallic than previous efforts, culminating in the band's most harrowing, nightmarish epic of them all, the 10-minute title track. Yeah. Now, that's
definitely which is definitely a very interesting track. Yeah, that's the thing I noticed about this album. It is toned down. It's more mellow.
Yeah. A lot mellow.
Yeah, it's not very heavy. I mean, there's a couple heavy tracks on here, but for the most part, it's pretty melodic. All right, so yeah. Get to the opening track, Sunrise. What a freaking gorgeous song.
Gorgeous song. Has a good rockin' middle section to it.
It just bedazzles me that Uriah Heep was never bigger back then.
No.
I mean, a track like Sunrise could have been a huge hit to me if it was promoted right. Like, the only huge hit they ever had was Easy Living, you know?
Yeah. You could say Look at Yourself, too. I mean, Easy Living, yeah.
But, man, no, I'm just going by, like, when it comes to a classic rock staple, Easy Living's really the only track.
Mm-hmm.
But Sunrise is absolutely epic, man. What a freaking awesome track. Great way to begin this album. Great, just everything about it's great. Then you get Spider Woman. Spider Woman's a little heavier.
Heavier, yeah.
Pretty good song. I enjoy it.
Then you got track 3, Blind Eye.
I'm trying to think, is this the track? Yeah, okay, this is the track. It has, like, nice harmony guitar work by Ken Hensley and Mick Box in it. Kind of reminds you of what Iron Maiden would sound like in the future with those twin guitars. Pretty underrated track. Definitely a good deep cut on here. Echoes in the Dark's another good one. Really good dark track. I like this one. It's dark, pretty moody, pretty progressive sounding. Really enjoy it. So then we got Rain. This is a really gorgeous track too. Very melodic. It's just, Ken Hensley playing a piano and singing over top of it. Which again, when I first heard this, I thought it was David Bryon singing, and it's not David Bryon. It's Ken Hensley doing the vocals on this track.
Yeah.
And he would actually put this on his solo album, which came out in 73. So yeah, really good track. All right, so then we get Sweet Lorraine. Another good rockin' track.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Excellent stuff here. Tells is a pretty decent. Actually, Tells would be my least favorite track on the album. It's all right,
Same.
but
it's all right, but
it's not what I go back to.
No. I think if you remove that from side 2, you'd have a good side 2.
Yeah. Like, to me, it's definitely the weakest track on the album.
Yeah.
But then we get the epic closer, The Magician's Birthday. What a bizarre track. It's
bizarre.
Good.
Yeah.
Happy birthday to you.
Yeah.
It's really weird. It's freaking good, though, especially the mid part of this track.
Yeah.
Where it's just Mick Fox and Lee Kurtz like jamming away, man.
Mm-hmm.
That part is so freaking awesome.
Yep.
Mick Fox going into these crazy wah-wah guitar solos and Lee Kurtz just going crazy on the drums in that midsection.
Mm.
And when it turns around, man, it just ends in a very gorgeous way.
Mm.
So yeah, I think Magician's Birthday is a great way to end this album, the title track. So to me, what would I give?
Did you show the album art? Did you show the album art?
I did.
Okay. All right. Making sure.
Do you have anything to say about this album? I kind of went over the tracks.
I see where people say it's the little brother of Demon Wizards. I think it's a step down from Demons and Wizards, but it's still a good, solid, epic album. I'm going to give it maybe an 8.5.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with maybe... I'm still going to give this one a 9. I'll give it a 9 out of 10. It's a little bit of a step down from Demons and Wizards, but not by much. And yes, Ryan Arnold did bring up a point. He did bring up a point that the band Demons and Wizards did get their name from the album Demons and Wizards by Uriah Heep. Yep, very good point made. So yeah, definitely, I go with a 9. So then we move on to another awesome album. Probably the last really, really good album in this batch, at least. It does get a little weaker after this.
Which I got the expanded deluxe edition.
Ooh.
So I have all the bonus tracks on it.
Oh, that's nice. Talking about 1973 Sweet Freedom.
Yep. Great album art cover, by the way, with the band background there.
Yeah, I think this cover is really cool. I mean, you know, I think it's one of their better album covers, too.
Yeah. This is probably the band's most commercial album, I'd say.
Yeah. I mean, this one definitely goes back in a heavier direction, too. It's definitely more rocking. It's definitely more hard rocking than The Magician's Birthday. And this one was recorded in a different recording studio, actually. So this came out on September 3rd of 1973, so it'll be 50 years old in September. Okay, so this one was recorded in, if I could pronounce the damn thing, Chateau de Hirovu. I can't pronounce the studio name.
Chateau de Hirovu. That's my best French attempt. So let's just say it was at the Chateau Studio. I'll just say that.
We're not French people.
No.
But again, produced by Jerry Braun. So yeah.
Kick it off with Dream.
Okay. So we got 8 tracks on this one. Oh, the lineup's still the same. You still got the classic lineup.
Yep.
So I'm not going to name the lineup. It's basically the same as Demons and Wizards and Magician's Birthday. Okay, so let's get to the tracks here. And this one's, I think the production's a little better on this album, too.
Yeah.
It seems a little beefier on this album for some reason. So Dreamer begins the album. Oh, what a killer track this is.
Killer.
Definitely back to that harder rocking Uriah Heep sound on this track.
Then you get a Barn Burner next track.
Stealing.
Stealing.
Doo-doo. Oh, yeah, man. What an
And you
epic track.
kick it. After the slow intro, you get into a bit of a crunchy guitar tone. Right into it. Bound and down.
Yeah, this is a really good one. Definitely. Actually, this one I do still hear on classic rock radio, so it's one of the only few Uriah Heep tracks that you hear on classic rock radio sometimes. It's a good one, though. I mean, holy cow. Now, this track, I guess at the time this track was deemed offensive because of a line in the track.
Yeah.
Because he talks about, what the hell is it? Oh, I doubt if it's going to say in here either. See, this part I should have fucking wrote down.
Yeah.
See, we'll mention the controversy? Of course not.
Nope.
Either word, there was a line of this track that they found that was offensive at the time. And they wouldn't release it as a single here in the U.S.
You know what it might have been?
Something about doing the... God, something about doing somebody's daughter.
Yeah, I'm just going to say...
How does that fucking line go?
I forget.
See, this part I should have fucking wrote down. I wasn't thinking about it earlier. Until now. But yeah, either word has a pretty, well, what would have been controversial back in 73. Which is nothing compared to nowadays. But either or, it's a freaking good track. Okay, so then we get to the track, One Day. Now this one's just a mellow acoustic track, really short. Not a bad track, it's all right. Then we get to the title track, Sweet Freedom. What a killer track this is. Absolutely incredible track. Okay. If I Had the Time, pretty good track, pretty good rockin' tune. 7 Stars is a weird one. Because near the end of the track, he starts saying the alphabet, which really threw me off balance. Did Mike freeze? Oh, I think Mean Metal Mike froze.
Sorry, a little bit of drama in the messenger between Brian and Ryan. Ryan's texting me at the moment. I told him wait till after you meet on the street. So that's why I was frozen for a sec. Dealing with a little something on the messenger side.
Either or.
Won't bring it up. Ben, we'll discuss it after the stream.
Yeah, I'm not worried about it. Anyways, I lost track here. Oh, okay. So we're talking about the tracks One Day.
One Day, yeah. Yeah.
I think this would be one of the weaker tracks on here. It's good, but it's just all it is really an acoustic track.
Yeah. The title track.
Sweet Freedom is freaking epic. I love this track. This is a good one. Really good stuff. If I Had the Time, it's a pretty good rocking tune.
7 stars.
This is a weird one. This is definitely a weird one because at the end of the song, he starts reading off the alphabet. Which, when I first heard this album, it threw me off. I'm like, what is this? A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, O, or some, whatever. He says it so damn fast, it's hard to keep up. It's a good song, but it's a weird song. Then you got Circus, pretty good song.
Then the closer, Pilgrim. Great
Ooh,
song.
this is a good epic track. I like this one. Definitely some excellent freaking keyboard work by Hensley on this track. Good way to end this freaking album. So, I would definitely give this album, if I were to rank it, to me, I'd give it like a... I'd probably give it an 8. I'm going between an 8.5 and a 9 out of 10 for this. You know what? I'm going to give this... I give this one like a 9 out of 10.
I'm gonna drop it to a 7 because of the ending of 7 Stars. If you cut out the ending, it'd be a better song. And with One Day, those are the only 2 songs that really kind of kill the album for me. That's why I'm dropping it to a 7.
All right, that makes sense.
Oof.
All right, so right now we're going to take intermission real quick.
Yep.
I got to take a bathroom break quick.
Intermission, guys. Holy shit, only 3 albums to go.
All right, we're back. Okay, so when we got 3 albums to go yet, part 1.
Yeah.
All right, going by a little quicker than I thought it would, to be honest. That's fine, though. So, all right, we talked about Sweet Freedom, which is a classic album. So now we're going to talk about the album Wonderworld from 1974, and this is where the cracks start to begin, to me at least. Well, we'll get into it. This would be the final album of Gary Thane on bass. You know, he would leave. And, well, I believe he was actually fired from the band just because he had such a bad heroin problem.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it would take his life the following year.
Well, that's the album art. I'm looking at the album art cover. Man.
Oh, you know what? Yes. Wonderworld. Let me bring that up. See, I knew I was forgetting to do something. There we go.
Yeah.
There's the album cover for Wonderworld.
Not my favorite album art cover from Heep. Not my favorite. I think I don't know.
It's kind of different. I mean,
yeah.
This album, we're going to get right into it because to me, yeah, this is where the cracks start to show. This is where David Bryon, his downfall kind of begins around the time of this album, too. Oh no, it begins strong. The title track, Wonderworld, a great way to start the album.
Yeah. It's a good song.
I think it's a really good song, actually. Very epic.
Mm-hmm.
You know, good Ken Hensley keyboard work in this track. I like the way it begins. But then we get to the next track, probably the heaviest song they've done at this point. Suicidal Man. Wow, this track's freaking heavy for the time. I would say, in a way, this track borders on proto-speed metal.
Mm-hmm.
It's just got a really frantic riff going on, you know, just a really heavy song. So yeah, the album begins very strong. However, The Shadows in the Wind, it's okay. It's not great. It's all right. It just sounds like, to me, this track sounds like it wasn't finished. That's just what it sounds like to me. And the thing I'm starting to notice, at least on this album, David Byron's vocals sound a bit tired on this one. Which, ironically, because the next track's called So Tired.
So Tired.
It's a good song. I mean, it's fast.
It's fast.
It's not a bad. It's all right. It's not bad. So then we get into the Easy Road.
Easy Road. Yeah. It's a short song.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. This one might be a faster one, actually. Or is this a... Nah. No. Okay, never mind. I'm thinking of another song. Okay, the Easy Road, it's okay. You know. Something or Nothing. Pretty cool song. I do like this one. I won't mind. This is the worst track on the album. I don't care for this track at all.
This track really doesn't belong on the album.
Yeah, it just sounds like it sounds like a filler track. It's not good. Filler. Boom, 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 boom. That's literally what the track is. Boom, boom. It's horrible.
Yeah.
We got
an
improvement. It's a decent track, but at least it ends with a good track. Dreams. What a great way to end this freaking album. A good epic track. Sounded more like the Uriah Heep we want to hear.
Yep.
Yeah, I know we didn't really spend much time on this one. Like I said, it's not a bad album. It just
the cracks are there.
You can see the cracks are there, and well, Gary Thane would end up out of the band not too long afterwards.
Yeah. Good in 19.
So I still give the album maybe a 7.5 out of 10.
I'd say a 7, maybe a 7.2.
Yeah, this is definitely. But unfortunately, the next album for me gets worse. Even though it has such a cool album cover, and it starts out so strong. But we got we got 1975's Return to Fantasy,
which I think is the coolest album art cover of the 70s Heep albums.
I love this album cover, and if you're a Uriah Heep fan back then, you'd think, oh, this is going to be like Demons and Wizards Part 2 or something, or look at yourself back to that heavier sound.
Nope.
No, it's not. And this is one of them albums, too, that'll fool you, because the opening track is freaking heavy and good.
Yeah.
The title track, that is.
God, Return to Fantasy is just a fucking great track, also.
Oh, yeah, I should mention, too, this would be the album where we get another bass, or, another lineup change. So coming in on bass, we get John Wetton on bass, which John Wetton came from King Crimson.
Mm-hmm.
So John Wetton's been around for a while, and right away you can tell it's a different bass player. The bass style on this is way different than Gary Thane's.
Now, Ben, here's a hot take.
Go ahead.
if Wonderworld would have had a better production, and if the band wouldn't have had cracks on that album, do you think Gary Thane would have possibly been on Return to Fantasy? You think it could have sounded different?
I mean, I don't really know, because at the time Gary Thane was so bad into heroin. I mean, it's hard to tell. You know, it's really hard to tell. I mean, if he got clean, maybe.
Yeah.
You know, it's unfortunate, because he was such a talented bass player. You know. So I mean, it's interesting though. If he would have continued on with the band, you know, would the music have eventually gotten better? You know. Because this opening track is killer, Return to Fantasy. And it's weird, because how I first heard this track was not from Uriah Heep, actually. The power metal band Gamma Ray covered this track on their album Somewhere Out in Space. And I bought that on CD way back in 99, 2000, and that's how I first heard Return to Fantasy.
Yeah.
And found out it's a Uriah Heep cover, so kind of interesting. But no, killer opener. But it gets bad. Shady Lady. What the hell are they thinking on this track?
I don't know.
This track is horrible.
Horrible.
It just sounds like your standard 70s rock and... It kind of sounds like a very bad Elton John song. Devil's Daughter, it's a little better. It's all right.
All right, yeah. Beautiful Dream.
Terrible. I don't like
it. Side 2, Prima Donna.
Okay. If you thought Shady Ladies was bad, Prima Donna's like eating a fucking pound of... It's like eating a fucking truckload of burritos and having to shit for a fucking month straight. That's how bad it is.
This album horrible. Your Turn to Remember.
Another terrible song.
Showdown.
Showdown's okay. It's not great.
Why Did You Go?
Another terrible track.
A year or a day. Good Lord.
Wait a minute. Okay, wait a minute. Why did you go? Why did you make such a fucking shitty album?
A year or a day. Well, why did you come up with that song title?
Actually, this might be the other track on the album I actually like. It actually ends good. It kind of has... It's not a perfect track, but it's decent. So this album...
It's
going to get a low score, man. I'm giving it I'm giving it a 4 out of 10.
I'm giving it a 4.01.
It's bad. Holy cow.
It's bad.
And I know why I never revisit this album besides the track Return to Fantasy.
Now for album art cover, good.
Excellent.
For album overall, crap.
It's like why would you use art like this? Why would you use art like this for a bad album?
Yeah.
Oh my god, man. Yeah, this is the worst Uriah Heep album of the 70s. Easily.
Now, would you say Pre-Badonna so far is the worst 70s song for Heep? Or does it get worse?
Actually, to me, maybe on the next album there's a track that might get... Yeah, there might be a track on the next album. The last one we're going to talk about here.
I Am Mighty.
And at the time, man, this is really where you could tell the band was falling apart. Like, you could tell this was about the end of the David Bryon era. Because David Bryon was so bad at alcohol at this period. And it definitely showed on this album. Yeah. Even though I think the last album he did is an improvement.
You want to pull up the album art?
Yes, I'll pull up the album art real quick. So, yes, we are talking about the 1976 album, High and Mighty.
Which would have the same lineup. Wetton, Kerslake, Hensley, Box. Except David Bryon is doesn't sing on one track.
Oh, yeah, John Wetton does the lead vocals on one track on here.
Which is one way or another.
And interestingly, John Wetton also does some mellotron and electric piano work on this album. So we'll get to the track listing here. 1976's High and Mighty came out.
Oh, we forgot. It came with a new studio, Roundhouse.
Yeah. I guess I'm going a little too fast here. Roundhouse Studios, yes, in London, England, it was recorded. And this was the first album self-produced by Uriah Heep. Jerry Braun has no involvement on this album.
Yep.
Okay, so track listing, you get 10 tracks. Yeah.
10 tracks. One way or another.
Not a bad track. It's decent.
Not a bad track.
I forgot to mention, too, like around the time of Sweet and Freedom, around the time of, trying to think, I forgot to mention this earlier. I think it would have been the album The Magician's Birthday, where Ken Hensley started using a lot more spacey, like, keyboard effects.
Yeah.
And hammer effects, and you get that on this album, too, and in this track. I mean, this track's pretty decent. It's not bad.
No.
But the next track, I think, is excellent. Weep in Silence. What a really good track.
Good track.
That's a really good, that's a really good David Bryon vocal performance on here.
Mm-hmm. It does.
I really enjoy that track, yes. Misty Eyes. I actually like this track a lot, too.
I do, too.
I think it's really good.
It's good.
So we're starting off pretty strong. We're kind of back to form a little bit here.
Yeah.
Midnight, the next track. Not a bad track. I actually like this one, too.
Like, side one's okay.
Yeah, Midnight's a good track, so yeah. So then we turn it over to side 2. Can't Keep a Good Band Down. It's kind of average.
Average. Woman of the World.
Terrible. Horrible.
Horrible.
Footprints in the Snow. Pretty good. I don't mind this one.
Can't Stop Singing.
Okay. Here we go. This is the track. This one might be a little worse than Prima Donna. This track is so freaking bad. This is like somebody shoving X-Lax up your fucking ass, and you can't stop shitting because there's so much X-Lax stuck up there. That's how bad it is.
Yeah.
This is a bad vocal performance by David Bryon, too. It's not a good vocal performance.
Make a Little Love.
Not good.
Not good. And then you end it with Confession.
Great way to end it. I actually really like this one. This one, you can definitely hear the Queen influence.
Yes.
This one's definitely very Queen-like. Really good way to end the album. So yeah, this album's a little bit more of an improvement. I would give this one maybe a 6.5 out of 10.
I'd say a 6.2. I just don't like that one song.
Oh, yeah, it's horrible. Easily the worst track on the album.
Yep.
So yeah, that came out in May of 76. Just a month later, David Bryon would be fired from the band due to his excessive drinking.
Yeah.
There were times where they tried to get David Bryon back in the band, and he would not come back.
And then he passed away.
He passed away 9 years later, unfortunately, in 1985, at the age of 38. just from years of not taking care of himself.
And then sooner or later, we would see the Curse leave, and then that'd be the end of the original lineup, because the only one left right now is Big Bob.
Which we will be getting into all that in part 2 of our deep dive on Uriah Heep, so you'll want to stay tuned for that. Which we'll probably do that next Thursday. Right now, I'm going to say probably next Thursday right now.
You want to do it a little bit earlier next Thursday?
I mean, we can.
Yeah, why not?
I mean, we could try to. See you next Thursday. Next Thursday, we're going to go from 1977 all the way up to 1985. That's right. We're going to do, because we got a new vocalist coming into the band, and again we got another new bass player coming into the band for the next part. So you'll want to stay tuned for that.
Remember, guys, to keep things metal.
Keep it metal.
Bass.
Hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope we didn't fuck this up too bad. It's very hard when these live.
This is our first deep dive getting back to the swing. There's gonna be hiccups.
Yes. Yeah, this is our first deep dive in, since the Pantera deep dive.
Yeah.
It's been almost a year. Yeah, it's been almost a year. And this is one we've been talking about doing for a year at least.
Yeah.
So, anyways, we'll look at the comments section real quick if I want to read it. Okay, we got Speed King and Brian McFadden still here. Sorry, we were not reading your comments. We were just trying to concentrate on this. But yes. So yeah, stay tuned for part 2. Then we'll probably do part 3 the following week, going into the Bernie Shaw to current era, starting from 1989 all the way up to current day. So yeah, man, I got a lot of Uriah Heep to listen to here in the next couple weeks.
Same.
Until then, so it's still fairly early. Well, it's midnight.
I'll stay on. We can switch it over.
Maybe in the next hour, I might go live on my main channel for a little bit. It'll be like a Uriah Heep deep dive after party over on my main channel, Metal Ben's Chronicles. So, if anybody wants to stick around for that,
I'll stick around for that, man.
All right, sounds cool. Just give me a little bit.
Well, I'm gonna sign off, people. I should be back for the after party, so you know the drill. Guys. Subscribe, hit that bell. If you don't, you get the shovel.
Exactly. And keep it metal.